I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHack's Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is, in a good relationship, the transaction is invisible. So the fundamental thesis of my forthcoming book, The Value of Others, is that relationships are the media in which value is transacted. Where no value is transacted, no relationship exists, nor can a relationship exist. On the other hand, the mere transaction of value is both necessary and sufficient to have a relationship. Now, the idea that all voluntary relationships are at heart transactional can rub people the wrong way. Sometimes it rubs people the wrong way due to a deficit of insight or self-awareness. However, it can also rub people the wrong way because this position kind of runs counter to their felt experience. Like, these people are in relationships that they don't experience as transactional. They don't think of their relationships in this sense, and they certainly don't feel like it fits with respect to their particular case. However, like so many other things, just because we can't see the transaction doesn't mean it's not there. Assuming sufficient insight, the reason why people might not see the transaction at the heart of their relationships is because their relationships are working. You see, in a good relationship, the transaction is invisible. It's only when the relationship becomes unsatisfying or dysfunctional that most people can catch a glimpse of that transaction. Allow me to explain. Like many people, I'm in a transactional relationship with a power company. In exchange for money, they deliver electricity to my house. A while back, I set up automatic payments to this company, which functionally means that I can go months without even thinking about this utility. When I flip a switch, the lights come on. And when they push a button, they receive their payment. With respect to our own transacted goods, everything is effortless and mutually beneficial, even though both of us are functionally pursuing our own self-interest in a strictly regulated contractual relationship. So long as we are both getting what we want, the transaction is invisible. And I'm going to be satisfied with this relationship in inverse proportion to how much I notice the transaction that serves as the basis of our relationship. Because when am I going to notice this transaction? Not when things are going well. When things are going well, the transaction is invisible. I'm going to notice the transaction when things are going badly. Let me tell you, when I experience a power outage, I am very aware of the transactional nature of our relationship. I'm thinking, I'm paying X amount every month as a utility fee, irrespective of my kilowatt hours, and I subsidize their infrastructure with my tax money. This is an outrage. They had one fucking job and they couldn't even do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. By the same token, if I ever were to stop paying my utility bill, the transactional nature of our relationship would become highly visible to the energy company. They would undertake increasingly aggressive efforts to recoup their loss, and if they couldn't, they would ultimately shut my power off. And I don't think any person would consider these responses to be somehow unreasonable. Now, the same thing holds true for our romantic relationships. When we feel like we're getting a good trade, that is, when we're getting at least as much as we're getting, then the transactional element is completely invisible to us. We're not thinking about it, we're not talking about it, and we don't feel that it even exists. We just kind of think, I'm in this relationship because I love this person. The transactional nature of the relationship only becomes visible and apparent when things start to go wrong. Trust me, if you start to give more and get less, you're going to become increasingly cognizant of that dynamic over time. And of course, that would only be a problem if relationships were transactional. Now, before I go any further, if you're liking what you're hearing, please consider sending this episode to someone who might benefit from its message, because it's word of mouth referrals like this that really help to make the channel grow. I'm also proud to announce that my book, The Value of Others, is now available for pre-sale on Amazon. I'm also writing original content for my free newsletter every week. So if you'd like to sign up, you can do so on my website. Finally, please fill out an inquiry form on my website if you're interested in booking a paid consultation. Links to everything in the description. Let's get back to it. If relationships weren't transactional and they just ran on love or vibes or whatever, then it shouldn't matter whether you were getting a raw deal. The transaction should remain just as invisible when things are going poorly as when things are going well. But that is decidedly not what happens. People start to think things like, I'm doing a lot more of the housework around here. Or, I really think we should be having more sex than we do. And what these comments and countless others effectively communicate is, I'm noticing that I'm giving more value than I'm getting in return. And that perceived unfairness is reducing my ability to enthusiastically remain in this relationship. It's just like me paying for electricity that isn't being delivered. When people feel like they're not getting enough of what they want, given their investment in the relationship in terms of time, energy, money, commitment, etc., then the transaction becomes visible. And when they are getting enough of what they want, given their investment in the relationship, or the perceived unfairness is adequately addressed, then the transaction once again fades into invisibility. That doesn't mean that it's not there. It just means that it doesn't require attention. And it doesn't require attention because it's working. What makes relationships so challenging is not that they are transactional. In fact, if we were collectively more accepting and explicit about this reality, we would all probably have an easier time with things. What makes relationships so challenging is that the goods being transacted are typically not explicitly negotiated and acknowledged and are subject to all kinds of change and fluctuation over time. My relationship with my power company is easy because we're both consciously exchanging one thing for one thing, electricity for money, and that holds true over time. Now, imagine you're exchanging many things of fluctuating value outside of both parties' conscious awareness. The fact that some people find a way to do this indefinitely is nothing short of miraculous. However, one of their secrets might be in how these people count. Like how people calculate how much they give and how much they get is subject to all kinds of squirreliness. This is because, in general, people overvalue what they give and undervalue what they get, which is obviously a serious problem if relationships are essentially transactional. So if you're going for longevity, it's kind of a good idea to consciously correct these biases. That is, slightly undervalue what you give and slightly overvalue what you get. What's more, it's also a good idea not to count too precisely. The closer you measure the value of what you give and get, the more transactional your relationship is going to feel. And remember, the awareness of transaction is generally characteristic of bad relationships. So bringing that awareness into your relationship is probably going to diminish subjective satisfaction by association. So punctilious and overzealous measurement is not a good idea. On the other hand, people in relationships that go the distance kind of take a fuzzy look at the numbers and the transaction of value. They don't look too closely at the economic exchange. This doesn't necessarily mean that these folks are turning a blind eye to dysfunctional or exploitative dynamics. It just kind of means that they're okay with the exchange residing in a rather broad confidence interval, and that they are willing to make allowances for exchange fluctuations over time. However, even within these relationship strategies, if your partner started to do much less, and you continued on as usual, or even started doing much more to pick up the slack, then this will tend to create dissatisfaction, conflict, and resentment over time. And this kind of wouldn't be possible unless relationships were transactional. Whether we like it or not, our feelings are tied to the perception of value in a very deep and very powerful way, which is a theme that I explore in much greater detail in my forthcoming book. So stay tuned. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your support and thank you for listening. And now, a word about Stellar. If you're interested in pursuing a master's degree or a doctorate, chances are good that you'll have to take the GRE. Now, before I became a psychologist, I was actually one of the world's top GRE test prep instructors. Over 20 years, I developed a unique and practical system for dismantling every aspect of this test, and I helped thousands of students achieve top percentile scores on the exam. Today, students can learn the same system I used to achieve my own perfect score with Stellar GRE, my online GRE self-study program. I personally wrote and designed every aspect of this course. Among other things, it includes a 500-page test prep manual, thousands of practice problems, and several full-length mock exams. Just like my episodes, Stellar is designed to give students the strategies and techniques they need to succeed as clearly and succinctly as possible. And the best part is, Stellar works. My students' average score improvements are higher than my competitors' score guarantees. So, create an account and start your free trial today at stellargre.com. Use the code PSYCH for 10% off any membership plan. The link is in the description.